Today we're going to check out the first title in the long-running action platformer series, Ratchet & Clank. I have to admit, I wasn't too impressed with this game the first time I tried it. That's not because this is a bad game, but it was due to the fact that I started with the sequel going commando, and this one hadn't quite perfected the formula yet. The story starts off with this weird Lombax creature named Ratchet working on his ship. While doing so, he sees something crash land in the distance. When Ratchet goes to investigate, he discovers a tiny robot that he eventually decides to name Clank. Clank then shows an infobot video showing a plan by the evil Drek to create a new planet by ripping chunks off of existing planets, which will of course destroy them in the process. The duo then decide to find the hero Captain Quark, in hopes that he will put an end to Drek's scheme. Things don't go exactly as planned though, and Ratchet and Clank end up going after Drek themselves. The two of them don't always agree on things, though, and sometimes argue like a married couple. There's actually a lot of story for an action platformer. While nothing is amazing, it is decent enough to make you want to continue. The first thing I do when starting the game is switch the camera controls. I have no idea how pressing up to look down and down to press up became the norm, but I can't frickin' stand it. The rest of the controls are good for the most part. Moving, jumping, shooting, and hitting enemies with your wrench all work very well. There are a couple of issues, however. The first is that the controls feel a little bit slippery. Ratchet has a bit of momentum when he moves that can make some of the platform sections tricky. The second problem is that there is no strafing. This makes things harder than they should be. Neither issue is game-breaking, and you will eventually get used to them. The graphics are pretty good for when this game was released. The character and enemy models have kind of a cartoony look to them and animate nicely. There's also some really great looking effects for the weapons. I am playing the PS3 version, which displays everything widescreen in a higher resolution. One complaint I do have with the graphics is that there are a couple of stages that are way too dark. On both the PS2 and PS3 versions, I always have to adjust the settings on my TV just so I can see where I'm going.
Ratchet, that's the man we saw on the infobot. Remember? He knows Captain Quark.
Hey, you're that robot guy, right?
No, actually, I build robots. I myself am not a robot guy, per se.
Nerd.
I like him.
This game has some pretty interesting weapons. While they may not be as good as some of the ones that were introduced later in the series, there are still some cool ones to mess around with, like the Glove of Doom, the Visibomb, and the Devastator. There is also a super weapon called the Rhino, or Rip Ya a New One, that can be purchased about halfway through the game. It is really expensive though, and you probably won't be able to afford it until your second playthrough. Once you do get it, you'll realize why it was so pricey. A single shot will actually shoot a bunch of homing missiles that will pretty much destroy everything. You will definitely need to get as many weapons as you can, because this game can be pretty challenging. Unless you find a special vending machine halfway through the game, Ratchet only has a 4-hit life bar. Combine this with the lack of a strafe button, and you have a recipe for a lot of deaths. This makes Ratchet & Clank the hardest game in the series. Most levels in the game have multiple paths and encourage exploration. While one path will lead to your next objective, the others can lead to new gadgets, weapons, or more bolts. There are also gold bolts to find which will enable you to purchase stronger weapons later on. Another thing you can do is try to earn skill points, which are basically like achievements. However, unlike the useless achievements and trophies you'll find on today's consoles, getting skill points will actually earn you some stuff in the game. It's nothing major, just a sketchbook and an epilogue, but at least they give you a reason to go for them. Ratchet & Clank may be a little rough around the edges, but is still a very enjoyable game with entertaining characters, great music, and a nice selection of weapons. You can usually pick up the PS2 version for around $10. The PS3 collection will run you about $25 and also has 2 other games on it. You can't go wrong with either one. And that will do it for this one. As always, I want to thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time.
And if you don't like it, you can take your whiny, sniveling, snot-nosed populations, form a line behind me, and kiss my... We're still on? Well, turn it off, you idiot!